Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings, and this is the last book of the Oz series. The opening note that would have in previous books been an author's note, in this one is a note from the publishers saying that Frank Baum had died in May of 1919, and so this book... This is the last of the proper Oz books. This is the last one that was written by L. Frank Baum. There are others that were written by other people afterwards, but I tried them and they weren't as good. So, Glinda of Oz. This is a book that we had a copy of in the house while growing up, so despite it being the last of the series, it remains one of the ones that I hold particularly fond memories of precisely because I could get my hands on it whenever I wanted. So, in this particular one, Dorothy and Ozma decide that they're going to go visit Glinda, and so they head out to her region of Oz, and Dorothy decides to look in Glinda's big book that writes down everything that happens anywhere in the world at all times that people are doing. It doesn't often do it in a lot of detail, as evidenced in this case, which I will get to in a moment, but it writes it all down. In this case, what the book says is that the Skeezers and the Flatheads are going to war, and basically nothing else. And Ozma, who has never heard of these people, because Oz, for all it is a relatively small country in the grand scheme of things, is, still a country, and it's a country with a lot of weird magical corners that nobody sees into. And so, nobody's heard of them, but Ozma feels duty-bound as the woman who is in charge of Oz. Well, girl, really, let's be honest. She is the fairy girl queen. She says that, she has to go and prevent a war from happening in her own country. So, she and Dorothy head off, decide to go, because Dorothy decides that she's going to go along with Ozma, and they head out to where the Flatheads and the Skeezers are and have various adventures along the way. This is an image of the Mist Maidens helping Dorothy and Ozma across the mist. Basically, it's a big valley that's filled with an incredibly dense fog, like one of those pea soup fogs that you hear about from London. And the Mist Maidens live in the fog, and so they're kind of like fog mermaids. Anyway, so they help Ozma and Dorothy cross the fog so they don't have to walk through a dense fog with who knows what in it. But they also wind up on the way meeting this spider, and I have always loved this picture of this spider because, look at that. That is awesome. That is an awesome spider with, weird extra hands and legs and a hat. He's a spider with a hat. I love that he's a spider with a hat. Anyway, the spider takes Ozma and Dorothy captive, but they manage to get out because there's this crab that he's a green crab and he wants to be a white crab, and he's like, if you turn me into a white crab, I will help snip the strands of the spider's web and let you out. If you make me a white crab, because white crabs are special. So Ozma duly turns him into a white crab, and he is delighted to do that. This continues like all the Oz books with just things that happen on the way. So Dorothy and Ozma find their way to the Flatheads Mountain, and the Flatheads are known as Flatheads because what they have is, instead of the brain case that normal humans have for their skulls, they just have a flat place. And it turns out that among the fairies who established Oz, at some point, however many dozens, hundreds, who knows how many years ago, those fairies decided to provide the Flatheads with brains in cans, And we see here a picture of the Supreme Dictator, the Sue-Dick, with one of his cans of brains, because part of how he became the Supreme Dictator was by stealing other people's brains. So he's now extra smart, but also it means that there are a couple of people hanging around with the Flatheads who have no brains. I don't know how that affects how they actually function in day-to-day life. This is not discussed in this book, which is fine because it's an Oz book. This is skipping much ahead because this is the side trek that we go on to see Rira the Red. As the story continues, various things happen, and a young man who is cut off from his home, that the Skeezers live on an island in a lake, but it's an island that has, like, giant magical machines. They're like, magitechnical machines with cogs and stuff. It's extremely steampunky, actually, that allows them to basically hide their whole island underwater. Anyway, there's a thing where these three so-called adepts at magic, who used to be the rulers of the Flatheads, they got turned into fish, and the fish have come popping out finally to help one of the Skeezers who got isolated, because the island got sunk under, and Queen Kuio, who is a very bad person who took over, or rather who turned the three adepts into fish back in the day, she has been turned into a diamond swan, like a swan covered in diamonds, like she's got diamond sprinkled feathers. She's very sparkly. Anyway, the three fish have grabbed a young man from the Skeezers and basically talked him into taking them to see a Yukuhu. You remember several books back there was a Yukuhu, which was a woman a giantess who could, like, transform anything into anything? Well, the concept of the Yukuhu comes back here with Rira the Red. And we see here Rira the Red pictured in the form of an ape, because when it's a very hot day, she likes being an ape because she doesn't have to wear clothes. And she usually keeps her cottage filled with a bunch of, like, things that look terrifying and dangerous, like ginormous spiders, and that's the back end of a crocodile. And, she transforms all of her pets and stuff however she feels like. And the plan basically winds up being from the three fishes that their new Skeezer friend has to effectively somehow convince Rira to transform them back. Well, their plan at first had been to find the secret of her magic so they could just be transformed back themselves, but when Erdrick, the young man in question, starts being smart enough to just sort of, like, reverse psychology Rira into transforming them, she is apparently interested enough in him as a young man that she transforms all of her scary animals into less scary animals, and herself into her actual form, which is an attractive redhead, which is why she is known as Rira the Red, oddly enough. He basically reverse psychologies her into transforming the fishes back into adepts at magic. Anyway, so, in the due course of events, of course, Ozma and Dorothy had wound up being caught under the lake with the rest of the Skeezers. The problem was that because it's, steampunk magitech, if you don't know the magic to run the tech, then you can't run the tech. And so everybody was concerned they were going to be stuck under the water forever, but they eventually figure out how to fix it. And the thing about this book is, in its way, it's a really, really fitting end to the series, because, first of all, we bring back Dorothy as a protagonist, but also because this story involves, at the end of it, the whole of Ozma's council getting together as they try to figure out how to rescue Dorothy and Ozma. And so we have everybody there. We have the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodsman who are on Ozma's council, and, you know, the Wogglebug and the Wizard and Auntie Em and Uncle Henry and Captain Bill and Jack Pumpkinhead, all of these people, all of these characters who we have come to know in the series sort of all get together and choose to all set off on a mission to rescue Ozma and Dorothy. And so in this book, however briefly, we hear from everybody, including even Betsy Bobbin and Button Bright, that we get so many of these characters back for just this one book, and I don't know if maybe that was deliberate, if maybe Frank Baum knew that he was dying, and so he sort of decided to throw everything in the kitchen sink in. But this book really is a very, very fitting end, in that, you know, they solve the problem between the Skeezers and the Flatheads, and as I said, we get everybody back together, the old gang, and then some. And so this book is special for being the last, but it's also special because it really does sort of bring you through everybody. However briefly, it brings you back through just about everybody except, like, Polychrome, but Polychrome wasn't an Ozite. And so it's a particular favorite of mine. I love this glancing past Rear of the Red. I love that it still has that Oz quality of we're just traveling through new and interesting places and just seeing what's there. You know, the basic kindness and goodness of people in Oz, but for a few small outliers. The usual Oz-related Deus Ex Machina, the way these books work, but that's fine because these books are, after all, less about the victory of good over evil than just about seeing things, and about getting to be on an island with a glass dome that sinks under the water of its lake so that you can see everything that's happening at the bottom of the lake. It's about the Yukuhu who can just transform everything just by thinking about it how she wants to. It's all of these things, these weird disparate parts that make this series so much that they just work. And I'm going to stop there in no small part because I plan to have a wrap-up video next week, which is going to be sort of me talking about the Oz books more generally, so I need to stop there. Anyways, I've always enjoyed this one. As I said, it was on the shelf, so it got read more than a lot of other books in the series, precisely because it was at hand. You know, I own books because I reread them, and this was one of the ones that got a lot of rereading, although I have no idea where our copy's gone. So I think that's all that I'm going to say about this, and the video after this will be a wrap-up, and then we shall see what I will be doing after that. So thanks to anybody who showed up, and I will see you all next week.